Thank you. Good afternoon to everybody in Glasgow, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone attending online from around the world. Welcome to our session on national case studies for an sustainable energy transition. My name is Lara Allen, and I lead the Centre for Global Equality, which is a civil society organisation that enables inclusive innovation in collaboration with University of Cambridge and increasingly with a number of other universities in the UK and around the world, of which this programme, Climate Compatible Growth, is an example. I'm really honoured to have the task of chairing this session. We have a fantastic panel of speakers who are going to offer us some inspiring case studies of how different countries have used CCG tools and capacity building opportunities to understand and plan a just transition to new sustainable energy and transport systems. Each speaker will talk for 10 minutes and we'll have a Q&A at the end. So please do post your questions in Slido as we go along so that we've got lots to talk about at the end of the session. Our first speaker is Dr. Beth Tennyson, who will talk about CCG's approach to building meaningful, equitable partnerships with key stakeholders in the countries where we work. Beth is a program manager at the Centre for Global Equality, where she leads the National Partnerships Workstream in CCG. She also holds a prestigious postdoc position in physics at the University of Cambridge, where she is working in Sam Stranks' lab on next-generation perovskite photovoltaics. And in her spare time, as if she had any, she has invented a game to help primary school children understand climate change. But Beth, over to your day job. Please tell us about CCG.
Yes, thank you, Lara, and great to be here and a part of this session. As Lara mentioned, I'm part of the National Engagement and National Partnerships team within CCG and a program manager in the Center for Global Equality. And so what we are trying to do within the CCG National Partnerships Workstream is build partnerships that are not only within the goal of climate compatible growth, but also synergetic and demand led. So what you're seeing in the graphic here is a mosaic of the planet Earth. And what we see ourselves as the National Partnerships team being is putting together the smaller pictures. And then when we come all and zoom back out, we see that the national strategy has become a climate compatible growth one. If we could go to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, so our approach thanks. Okay, so our approach to national engagement and partnerships is inclusive innovation. And so how does this work? What we do is engage end users or perhaps people that are a part of a project that are quite affected by the project. And they're providing input with us or a different collaborator or other collaborators in order to co-design what that project should be and how it should be engaging and moving forward. And then it's co-implemented and then tested and fed back to see if it did achieve its goals. We, as the partnership side, link with the research expertise that's available within CCG. And now I don't expect you to look at all the different names, but just so you have a capture of the different work stream leads, each one of them with a unique expertise that is related to the climate compatible growth mission. And our goal in the national partnerships is to link the key priority countries that we work in within this research expertise. So what's our mechanism and process in order to ensure key and synergetic partnerships? I want to go through this slide kind of step by step, as this is our process to making sure we develop nice and long-lasting partnerships. The first step is to scope. Once we've selected a priority country, is to scope and identify the needs and gaps that perhaps we can help assist within CCG. Then we move to the three-pronged approach that you see in the scoping box. We do a stakeholder mapping exercise to see who's doing what and how we can assist. We find the relevant expertise within CCG. And then meanwhile, underlying, we're looking and hiring a key country coordinator that will help us foresee and manage the on-the-ground projects, which is really important for us as partnerships team to ensure that the different projects are reaching their deliverables in a relevant way. Once the scoping is over, we move to the co-creation box. And what you can see here is kind of the first step is to form naturally these special interest groups, is what we call them, or SIGs. And now the special interest groups are either an incubator type of idea around a single theme that's within the mission of climate compatible growth, or it can be a hub of projects. So depending on the stages and how many people are involved within a special interest group, we're not judging. It just is up to the group on how it wants to manage. But the key is that it will continue to look for projects related within that. And then they co-design and conduct project research together. And then they would share their outputs in an equitable way. And then when we move into the outcomes such as dissemination and monitoring and evaluation. And then, of course, they will test to see if their needs had been met or not. And if not, we would go back to the drawing board to ensure that we're reaching those needs. But I only have a little bit of time left, and this is the national case study. So I want to go through an actual case study that we've been working with. And so one of our key priority countries is Lao PDR. We had been working in Laos for about 4 months now, so we're still in the scoping and co-creation mixture phases. And I wanted to kind of point out a couple of different ways that we're scoping and co-creating right now. We first started with a literature review of the relevant and public documents available, such as the NDCs within Lao. And they were actually quite ambitious, which was great to see. One of the other things that really helped us get our foot in the door in Lao PDR was the ETC's Rapid Response Facility. And we were able to assist and provide an expression of interest that was relevant, which was great because this was a demand-led governmental effort and ask from Lao. And there's going to be more on the RRF in the next session, so I won't talk too much about that. But I just wanted to shout out, and you should definitely join the next session if you're interested in that effort. And then I will go through the waste management specifically and recycling, because when we were doing the scoping and talking to multiple stakeholders, what we kept drawing out was that waste management was a key priority within Lao PDR, and many people were working on that. So we were scoping out the different stakeholders. We had talked with different nonprofit and researchers, such as Zero Waste Lao and other researchers in chemical engineering at the National University of Lao, who are looking at how to do waste to energy work. Then we find the relevant expertise within CCG, and this was linked to perhaps our work stream 4, which is sector interactions. We have a team that can study emissions and throughout the supply chain. There's also work stream 3, which does a mapping of different spatial and energy systems, which could be useful for this project as well. And so we've linked up now and hired our coordinators in Lao and partnering with the National University of Lao. So they're going to help us coordinate with some of these projects. We're now forming SIGs, and waste management will be one of them. And we're co-designing, we're in the co-designing and conducting a research phase within the RRF project. And so I'm going to leave it there. Happy to ask further questions if you have any on any of this, our process, or on the case study in Lao. But thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the other presentations in the session.
Thank you very much, Beth. So I think we will move straight on to our second CCG case study area, which is Kenya. So our next speaker is engineer Isaac Kiva, who is currently the Secretary for Renewable Energy at the Minister of Energy, Government of Kenya. He is very experienced in public sector management, having held senior government positions for over 20 years, and he's a registered professional engineer himself. He has been absolutely central in the very exciting planning process that is currently taking place in Kenya, that's been going on very actively over the last year. And he's very kindly agreed today to offer some insights on that process, and I think particularly on some of the CCG tools that his team in the Ministry of Energy is using. So, Engineer Kiva, thank you so much for joining us, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, colleagues. It's a pleasure for Kenya to be here and to be able to speak to this issue because also planning for energy is very crucial. It ensures that you can be able to transit in a manner that you really want, and also ensures that there are efficiencies, there are gains to make, to gain in terms of having an efficient plan, an effective plan, and a plan that aligns with the aspirations of the country. And in Kenya, we have been doing power planning based on a 20-year rolling plan, basically looking at our demand forecasting, also been looking at our generation planning, and then we identify the target transmission network and undertaking relevant simulations to come up with the optimal future network. We also estimate the investments requirements and indicative tariffs from the plan generation and transmission network. A very key thing for us has been demand forecasting, where we are able to then use correlated factors to be able to reach out at what is the actual demand protection. And in so doing, we are able to look at key assumptions where we look at the key drivers such as the population growth, urbanization rate, the GDP growth, electrification levels, among others. And then we have the government projects. For example, in our Vision 2030, we had identified some flagship projects which are supposed to ensure socioeconomic transformation. So we look at all those things, and then any other factors that are likely to impact on electricity demand, like if there is a pandemic, then we know this is going to have an effect. Now, since the year 2019, we are in an era where we have a new act, and this new act mandates the ministry to prepare an integrated national energy plan. Now, this integrated national energy plan is not only going to have the electricity plan, but it is also going to have a bioenergy plan, an energy efficiency and conservation plan. It is also going to have an access plan, energy access plan, and also resource assessment and development. And therefore, we started talking about how to reinforce the tools that we have, because previously the tools that we had were really geared towards achieving the risk cost power development plan. That is mainly demand forecasting, generation, and transmission. But now we needed tools that can be able to achieve this integrated national energy planning. And when we were then checking with our development partners, our colleagues, we were able to be socialized using the OseMOSYS planning tool. Already we have had a training. In fact, last week we gathered all our planning teams from the ministry and the utilities, where we were having a workshop just to look at the tool and what we can be able to do for our planning. And the plan is to continue with this training and working with the tool to continue enhancing the understanding. But after engaging with it and practicing with this OseMOSYS planning tool, the feedback then from the teams and from all of us is that the tool is very good for integrated energy planning. For one, it's easy to follow, and one can be done quite fast. It is versatile and offers different interfaces for modeling, which is very crucial for us as we look at sensitivity analysis, as we look at options. You can also model energy systems for a country, and it's not limited to power and electricity alone. And this is one very good point of departure, because what we have been having is like PSSE, that's just for transmission. We had another one for demand forecasting and for generation. But these two then can be able to model the whole range of energy. It offers a cloud interface to simulate, and the load results, thereby taking up less space on computer hard drives. And very key is that it is able to optimize renewable energy sources. This one problem we have been having with the tools that we had before, because our energy system has largely been based on hydro, has also been based on thermal power plants, which were among the first power plants that we developed. But then afterwards, there was a quest to move into renewable energy. And when we started doing wind, solar, it was very hard then to model these variable renewable energy sources. But these two then can help us to optimize, because a plan is only good if it is optimized. That is what countries look for. That is what policymakers are looking for. That is what the technical people are looking for. So this is one of the good things for the tool. We do believe as we continue to engage with the tool, we'll be able to see how the tool can be able to help us even to model things like battery storage, and if not, then we'll get complementary tools which we can also be able to work with, and also looking at short-term planning. The tool is very good for long-term planning, but for short-term planning, we see an opportunity where we can also complement with any other tool. So for us in coming from this side, it's actually a very good tool. I would recommend it for most of the developing nations, especially where there is an entry of renewable sources getting into the grid, and also where there is also expansion of the planning, moving from the traditional power planning, electricity, to an integrated manner. Most of the countries now, for example, in our neighborhood, are moving into integrated national energy planning, which is very good and crucial. So this is one tool we can recommend, and we continue interacting with it, working with CCG and other partners, so that we can be able to better and see how, if there are any shortcomings, how they can be addressed, either through further research, through further reviews, or through augmentation with any other tool. I want to reach it there, and thank you very much for inviting us to be part of this discussion. Thank you very much.
Engineer Kiva, thank you so much for this talk, but also for all your interactions as we've been working together on the tool. And your comments just reminded me of the fact that those of us in CCG who are developing the tool would really like to thank you and your teams for the really constructive feedback you've given on the tool, because it will be modified and changed and co-created with you and your teams to make it more and more fit for purpose. So thank you for that. And we look forward to lots of ongoing discussions and co-creation with you and your teams in Kenya going forward. So thank you. So I think we'll telescope out now from one country, from Kenya, to look at a region. And our next two speakers are from the International Atomic Energy Agency. Our first speaker is Dr. Luis Carlos Longoria Gándara, who is Director of the Division for Latin America and the Caribbean in the International Atomic Energy Agency, otherwise known as IAEA, it's easier to say. He is a keen advocate for robust energy planning as the foundation for well-informed policymaking for sustainable energy so that it can become in line with the SDGs and the Paris Climate Change Agreement. Today, he's going to tell us about IAEA's Technical Cooperation Program, specifically as how this is going and how it's being applied in the agency's capacity building for energy planning in Latin America and the Caribbean. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Allen, for inviting me to take part on this side event during the COP26. I will briefly give an update and an overview on the capacity building efforts in energy planning in Latin America and the Caribbean. Well, needless to say, energy planning is an essential part of the policy and investment decision-making in the energy sectors. It involves forecasting the country's region future needs, shaping the pathways, and being consistent with the broader economic, social, and environmental objectives. The IAEA has been working in the region for a long time, supporting member states with the necessary capacities to enable them to construct, to build the strategies that best suit each country. Also, the IAEA has a suite of energy planning tools to cover the different processes of energy planning, particularly in the analysis of energy balance or energy demand, as well as the analysis of energy supply. For example, if we focus on power generation investment and expansion of planning, we have some tools for the analysis, also for the environment impacts of a particular power plant, or the analysis of financial viability. The energy planning tools are technology neutral and can be applied to any country, any sites. The tools can be tailored to a particular need or a relevant policy in every country. As you know, every country decides what is the energy basket that most suits the country, and these models will help the authorities, the decision makers, to decide on what is the most suitable mix of energy sources that you have. The scenarios on the energy planning are always changing, and you have to consider not only financial parameters, but also socioeconomic parameters, environmental parameters, and also what are every country's target to implement a policy that is at the national level. The IAEA focuses particularly in the capacity building, and that's why we are training a lot of people through regional workshops, training courses, and also specific fellowships. Could be a particular master degree or a particular training in a laboratory or training center. The agency also provides assistance for conducting national and regional studies for energy strategy. So we accompany the countries in their work regarding what are the strategies to follow. We do it through the Technical Cooperation Program in the Caribbean and Latin America. Every country decides how they want to plan the energy to obtain the sustainable development goals or some of the climate targets that will be assessed. We accompany the countries at the regional level or at the national level. And for example, in the Caribbean, we partner with other agencies like the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center. In Latin America, the Organization for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. In other words, we always work with partners in the region to have a more broader understanding of the energy planning. Just to give you an example, we have trained, more than 250 specialists at the national level in these IAEA planning tools. The number of projects, for example, we have national projects specifically targeting the needs of a particular country. Right now, we have projects in Antigua and Barbuda, Uruguay, Honduras, Nicaragua, and so on and so forth. And always focusing on the training of national teams in the IAEA energy planning and technology. At a regional level, we also conduct a lot of training through technical advice workshops, because in many cases, when it is necessary to include a regional strategy. For example, if we are talking about Central America, we have to look at the whole picture, not only at one particular country. And we assess this together with all the actors in the region. In the Caribbean, for example, we have a project with 12 countries that will be working in the analysis and the planning of integrated systems, establishing the connections between the climate, land, energy, and water. For the next years, we will be focusing again on national and regional projects. For example, in Nicaragua and Guatemala, we'll have a tailored capacity developing program for energy planning. Every country decides what are the focus. For example, in Nicaragua, where they have a lot of geothermal resources, will focus on this, while Guatemala would like to focus on sustainable rural electrification according to the national electrification plan. I would like to conclude to saying that the agency, the IAEA, has the methodology, has the tool, and is helping member states in their planning. Obviously, these methodologies, these tools are in support of the whole package of methodologies that each country of each region has. But the better the people are trained, the better the capacity building is in the country, the more informed decisions will be taken regarding the energy planning. I would like to conclude this presentation with this word. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for that. I'm looking forward to some discussion at the end of the session. We'll take all questions then, and I'm sure there's some questions coming in for you. So staying with the IAEA, I'd like to introduce Professor Shaukat Abdul Razak, who is Director for the Division of Africa at the International Atomic Energy Agency, where he is facilitating technical cooperation to support 45 countries across the continent. Before joining the IAEA, he was CEO at the Kenya National Commission for Science, Technology and Innovation. Seems like we can't keep away from Kenya today. And he has more than 20 years working experience as a professor and university administrator, chairman, and member of national and international boards. This makes him an ideal speaker in this session, which is really all about productive collaboration between universities and governments. He's now going to tell us about how the IAEA contributes to African capacity building in energy planning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lara, Alan, and good morning, friends and colleagues, and good afternoon, wherever you are. I will attempt within 10 minutes to shed a little bit of light on our work here at the agency and how we respond to the needs of our member states in Africa in regard to energy planning. I've put this slide initially so that you could see where we are coming from in terms of the challenges that we are facing in the continent of Africa. And the points that I've put there just among the few and many other sort of challenges that we see. The fact that 2/3 of people without access to electricity in the world today live in sub-Saharan Africa. And you can see about 90% of children in sub-Saharan Africa go to their primary schools with a lack of electricity. This really calls consolidated effort and undertaking so that we can be able to address this challenge. Now, in terms of energy, we all know that energy is one of the main field where nuclear techniques could also bring solution. Of course, we use this technique and technology in other areas as well. But it is estimated that by 2040, if we continue with the current trend, then we are going to see almost 1.2 billion people in Africa that will really need cooling, so to speak. So there is a very sort of high demand there. And then the agency joins the international community efforts to help Africa in addressing this sort of difficult equation, the equation where there is the growing demand and limited access to energy, but at the same time, we are being faced with the pressing global challenge of the climate change. Friends and colleagues, as you are aware, our DG is also attending the COP26, and he's pitching our position as far as nuclear energy is concerned in addressing the climate issue. Now, as far as the IAEA modeling is concerned, my colleague Luis has really gone into details of these tools and modelings. I'm not going to go into that. But just if you look at my slide on the right side, you can see how the energy contributes in different sort of sector. And it's very important for us here that we assist our member states in a very collaborative manner to ensure we can be able to have the sustainable energy strategies and also conduct a comparison of alternative scenarios in terms of demand and supply, what Kiva was talking about, for example, in Kenya, in terms of looking at the drivers in terms of increase of population, the visions that our country would have, the financial aspect. And this is the beauty of these tools. We can be able to use these tools and be able to address those challenges. Now, let me just give you some few examples of how we can come in. And as my colleague said, Luis, capacity building is really our core mandate here. And we would like to build capacity in terms of training. We've been able to contribute very effectively in various countries in Africa. Just to give you an example, there you can see Botswana, Eswatini, and Tanzania. They have their own titles of their plans, but by the end of the day, really contributing in terms of the energy planning and be able to do the necessary projections with the aspiration in how they're addressing the social economic development. Just more examples: Rwanda, Kingdom of Lesotho, and Burundi. This is really at the national level, where countries will be able to propose national projects, and we'll be able to come in. Here at the agency, we work in a one-house approach at the Technical Cooperation Department, which is the primary mechanism of delivering of the technology, but we have very competent technical officers in the technical department that will be able to provide the necessary tools and the necessary training that is required. In Africa, other than the national level, we have also moved to the regional level, and you can see that there are several energy plans for sustainable electricity supply options that we've worked very closely with sub-regional entities. And at the moment, we are publishing necessary documents so that they could be able to influence, if you like, the policy makers in these sub-regional entities in addressing the issue of the energy planning. Now, having moved from the sub-regional level, we also have the continental master plan. And this, again, you can see from my slide, we are moving from the national institutions. After we've assisted them in building capacity and capability, we move to the sub-regional level, and then in collaboration and cooperation with the African Union, you can see there, AUDA, NEPAD, we were involved, and we continue engaging with them in preparing this continental master plan that will be able to facilitate the African power pool, again, in partnership with all players, including the European Union, the African Development Bank, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the elements that demonstrates to you, A, the importance of energy at the national level, energy planning at the sub-regional level, but also we pitch it at the higher level of the continental level. And hopefully that we can be able to slow down in terms of lack of access to electricity as we go forward, and be able to plan better in terms of this resource that, in my opinion, unless we can be able to fix the energy, we will not be able to leapfrog in terms of the social economic development in the continent. Now, as we move forward, we have planned together with our member states a regional project which will commence in the 2022 to 2025, and this is really to expand on energy planning capability and partnership in the region. You can see we have clearly indicated some of the expected outcome of this project, and this is really to engage educational institutions, establishing capacity building in these institutions, develop and update the national energy planning and case studies, and of course continue engaging, updating, developing the sub-regional energy study cases as well, and above all also to integrate the planning for expansion of security. So once again, you can see that we have these opportunities here, and I would say that as we move into the future, I see that there is a need for consolidated effort from all players. And here at the agency, we identify through country program framework, regional undertakings, and now you can see the continental level. In fact, we have a memorandum of understanding, a practical arrangement rather, with the African Union Commission, try to really pitch that conversation at the highest possible level in addressing the needs. For me, really, as we go forward, I see two things here. As we go into the future, I see the digital undertaking and I see green. And these are opportunities that are available here at the agency. A, in terms of digital, we have the necessary tools and modeling. And in terms of going green, you can also bank on the nuclear energy as we go into the future. So I would like to stop there, and I'm looking forward to maybe discussion and interaction as we go along. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And all the speakers have been absolutely marvelous. I haven't had to ask anybody to stop in the middle of your talk. So thank you for being so succinct and inspiring. So next, we're going to go from the regional level down to a particular country. And one of the people in the chat has already noted the leading place that Costa Rica plays in this field. So I would like to welcome Dr. Jairo Quiros Tortos to talk to us about Costa Rica. Jairo is the coordinator of the Electric Power and Energy Research Laboratory at the University of Costa Rica. He works on transient stability, electric vehicles and storage systems, as well as modeling and simulation of electricity systems at the transmission and the distribution level. He is a very active member of the CCG community and has already contributed very much to our discussions this week, and I would say to the organization behind this week. So he's very kindly offered to talk about using CCG tools for energy modeling in Costa Rica. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everybody there in Glasgow, and good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are. So first of all, I wanted to start expressing the apologies from our Minister of Environment and Energy. She couldn't make it, so I'm here to talk a little bit about the things that we have been doing here in Costa Rica. And this is a story that I'm going to tell you about a very small country, only 5 million people, but with huge ambitions. We have huge ambitions in the climate front. So, as you may already know, Costa Rica has an extensive tradition to fight climate change. So this is not something that we actually started quite recently. If we go back to 1940, just imagine, almost 70 years ago, 80 years ago, our policymakers decided that we were going to have almost 100% renewable energy system by 2000. That was the ambition, and it is stated in our documents. It is not something that we just invented. They said we want to have renewable energy systems by 2000. So they decided to invest primarily on renewables towards the electricity system of Costa Rica. And today, perhaps you already have seen on the news, Costa Rica is running 99.2% of electricity by renewables this year. And it has been like that over the last 7 years. Actually, it is on the news, international news. I have seen this in many international news. So we started with the electricity system. It was very successful. And in 1980s, back when ex-minister Carlos Manuel Rodriguez, who is today CEO of GF, started, and he said that we should start doing something for our forest. Back to those days, about 30% of Costa Rican coverage was by forest, just 30%. So he stopped and he put some policies to stop deforestation and start reforesting our forest. And today we have 60% of forest coverage. So that's huge, and that really has helped a lot on decarbonizing our economy. Since 2015, Costa Rica enhanced its climate ambition, and since we already had a renewable electricity system, we were doing actions on the forest. We knew that our transport sector was the next step to decarbonize our economy. So we started to build open source energy modeling tools to understand really how this transition in the energy sector could be done. We started using on OseMOSYS as a planning tool in Costa Rica, and we started collaborating with colleagues, international experts that today are good friends, and we exchange experiences. We were trained We were excellent. It was an excellent training that we had back in 2017, 2018 to create this open source modeling tool. At the very beginning, it was very difficult to populate the models. We were using international data, and it was not that easy to start in the country. But at the moment that we started to show the type of analysis, the type of results that we could get with this tool, all power utilities, the refinery, and the Ministry of Environment and Energy opened the doors and said, okay, what type of data do you need to populate your model? And we started to engage, but massively engage. We held like workshops with 200 people discussing the type of assumptions that we were making in the model, the type of results that they wanted to see. And back in 2018, around mid 2018, we had a really good model to inform policy in Costa Rica. That was an excellent approach that we took. Lot in line with what our first speaker was mentioning today. This co-creation concept, I've been telling this in our previous interventions in the CCG side events this week. This co-creation is so important. We need to co-create with the stakeholders so they are engaged and they really see the value of our models. And they do this very important buying process. The tool then, back when Mr. Carlos Alvarado got elected as president of Costa Rica, and he said, I want to have this national decarbonization plan. We were in a rush. So we were like, okay, we have 3 months because that was the timing that we had. You guys have 3 months. Actually, we had 100 days. That was the period given. He basically said, you have 100 days to create a national decarbonization plan. So we were like, okay, let's run. Fortunately, we have this open source, very flexible and transparent model to run hundreds of simulations. And every time we were doing this simulation, there was this stakeholder said, oh, I don't want that assumption. I want this to be changed. We change it. And in one day, we had new sets of results that we could feed back to them, get retrofit. And this process was repeated like 1,000 times, perhaps more. Then it was fascinating. It was exciting, tiring, but fascinating. Then we supported all the actions and all the key targets that we have to become carbon neutral by mid-century according to our national decarbonization plan, which was submitted as our long-term low emissions strategy to UNFCCC in December 2019. After that, there was this very important question. So, okay, we now have the national decarbonization plan. What's the cost? What are the benefits of that? So we executed along with international experts as well, because this co-creation and this international coalition to produce analysis that can support the decision-making process in countries is very important. So we made partnership with different international institutions, and we carry out the cost-benefit analysis of the National Decarbonization Plan in Costa Rica, which, as you may already know, it will result in $41 billion of net benefits by 2050. This is about 65% of current GDP in Costa Rica. So those are the net benefits for Costa Rica. So decarbonizing is not only environmentally benefit for our planet, it will also result in net socioeconomic benefits for its people. So it's double the better. Then there was a question from the Minister of Finance, and he said, guys, this sounds fantastic, but 20% of my income comes from fossil fuels. So if we decarbonize, what is the fiscal impact? So we studied that. Results are still under development, but I can tell you that the fiscal problem is there, but the socioeconomic benefits are much bigger. So we can ahead design fiscal policy to deal with that fiscal burden that the decarbonization may pose on the decarbonization process. Recently, with the pandemic, there was this big question as how we are going to recover from now after COVID. So using that open source modeling tool plus others that are also open, we carry out with primarily our colleagues from the international expertise this green recovery analysis, which is about to be released by the government of Costa Rica. We are currently working with the AFD, the French Agents Development, to study, okay, if we decarbonize, what are the job creation? Okay, so what are the impacts on the jobs? How many jobs are we going to create? How many jobs need to be transformed? Because we are not going to lose jobs. This is not going to happen. We just need to transform, create new capacities. So we are studying that, and actually will be presented next week by 2050 Pathways platform during the COP. So stay tuned. There will be analysis. Also, I know I have 20 seconds, so I might be the first one that the bell will sound. So I apologize for that. But in these 20 seconds, I will tell you that our president, our government is also dealing with MDB's financing processes. As you know, ADB and AFD produce a policy-based loan for Costa Rica. This is a historical event for the country, and it is going to happen as well in many other countries. So we are definitely moving from the traditional system to new systems, and everything that has been taking place in Costa Rica has been along with this open source OseMOSYS model, which we use a lot and we are fascinated. Beyond that, we have been collaborating with an excellent community, international community that I think today are also very good friends. So thank you very much for the invitation, and I apologize again for the timing, but yeah, back to you.
Definitely, it's worth waiting for it. Thank you. I mean, Costa Rica is so impressive. It's a small country in terms of population, but you're punching way above your weight and really leading the way. It's really fantastic and so inspiring. So thank you. And on the subject of inspiring countries that are leading the way, we are really honored today to have the Honourable Minister H.E. Natasha Pilides, who is the Minister of Energy, Commerce and Industry for the Government of Cyprus. I was amazed when I was told you were going to be speaking, so thank you. She has a background in modern languages. She's a chartered accountant and has a great deal of public and private sector experience in the fields of banking, finance, shipping, insurance, energy and construction. She's an enthusiastic and knowledgeable advocate for effective energy planning, and we are really honoured that she's managed to squeeze us in today to your packed schedule at this time to share Cyprus's experience of decarbonising pathways. Over to you, Natasha.
Is it? Can you hear me? Oh, brilliant! It's red now, and it was green before, so I got confused. Apologies. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, and it's a real pleasure to be here. We've had such sort of positive interactions and collaboration in terms of the energy modeling process that Cyprus is following, and it's an honor to be working with you, and it's also an honor to be taking part in this COP26 event, which we're very excited to be parts of. Today, we'd also like to talk about how the energy modeling process has helped us to seek insights into future energy systems and to base our energy modeling our energy planning on models that are actually able to predict and show the progress and the planned progress based on the different parameters, which are actually very changeable. And so it's obviously a complex project without which we wouldn't be in a position to have proper detailed roadmaps that are able to take all the different variables into consideration. Now, in this slide that you see here, you can see the first sort of models that we started working on, which as you can see, date back to 2014, and which have developed greatly since then. And we're moving into a different and much more advanced stage now, of course, with the help of our collaborators, and we're very happy and optimistic that we're doing that. Now, the models that we had in place in previous years did actually help us to redesign our strategy and to work on our strategy in a sort of dynamic way. And as a result, we managed to exceed our targets by about 4%. That's nowhere near the impressive numbers that Costa Rica spoke about. So, but we're still happy that we managed to exceed our targets, and we're really trying to become much more ambitious in the targets that we will be going for Fit for 55, and also obviously for 2050 as well. Now, to succeed in the energy transition, of course, we need to have open source models, transparent methods, and we definitely need stakeholder participation. One of the things that we find is stopping us sometimes in the timely sort of implementation of projects and goals and achievement of goals is that not all parties concerned are working sort of together at the same time, and sometimes that causes delays or confusion. So analyzing and designing the different pathways with these stakeholders is particularly important. Our energy modeling for policy support has included the participation and will include the participation of universities, government departments, electricity, natural gas, soil companies, NGOs, financial institutions. And I think we have been doing a good job of involving those people in conversations. We need to involve them also in the implementation stages as well, in a much more sort of continuous way, in order to have to follow through with the models and the objectives based on those models. So, for example, in our current planning scenarios for our national energy and climate plan, we have analysed the importance of being interconnected, and you can see here the difference that an interconnection makes, and that is what we're able to see through this modelling, that in Cyprus we can have 67% more renewable energy sources in the energy mix if we're interconnected than if we're not, with very with an insignificant difference in the costs. And so you can see how important that is for us. But what we're doing, because the interconnection is a very expensive and difficult project, both technically and financially quite challenging, we do not know for sure that it's going to materialize or when it's going to materialize. Certainly we would aim for it to materialize before 2030 so that it can be factored into our goals for 2030. However, we do need to have alternative scenarios where storage takes a much more prominent role. So further studies are now under development to identify missing money in regards to achieving the same res penetration with storage than we would need to achieve with interconnector, and knowing how much investment is going to have to go into that and at what stage in order for us to be able to meet our targets. And so IRENA and the Imperial College of London and local universities are examining these different pathways using open source tools like OseMOSYS and FlexTool to optimally allocate the best paths forward. And in addition, of course, we plan to revise the NECP in 2023 to reflect, obviously, Fit for 55 and the national obligations deriving therefrom, which, of course, is something that needs to get done very, very soon, because we have to also make all that happen. So we need to know what it is. And in the meantime, of course, we're already working towards it, but we need to know, what the gap is so that we can adjust our actions for the next 5, 6, 7 years in line with all the funds that we have from the EU and national funds as well to invest in the green transition. So here you can see a bunch of maps and lots of different maps of the island of Cyprus, which show a lot of different statistical data. And so what the project is doing is that it's going to bring together all of this information so that all, in a very simplified way, in the way that I understand it, all the information that we see on each different map on the screen is going to be unified, is going to come together in one single model, which is going to be able to make predictions and to give information taking into account all of these factors. So all of the factors include things like town planning maps with various building and environmental zones, technical potential maps like solar and wind atlas, existing demand in heating and cooling sectors, which of course is quite important, and grid maps and substations capacity, availability, capacity of those substations in each area, which obviously is crucial for developing further large scale res projects. And of course, because Cyprus is a small place and finding suitable space for res development is at times a problem, and it's something that comes with a lot of social pressure and a lot of different stakeholder groups having different opinions. It's very, very important to have these sound models that actually justify and back up the decisions that are being taken on those types of projects. So we would not be able to meet our targets without the long-term scientific support from institutions such as Imperial and IRENA, and of course the Cyprus Institute, partners in Cyprus as well, because all of this stuff is crucial to having a scientific and a sort of well backed up approach in our implementation of the Green Deal. I already mentioned energy storage as being a large part of that, but our hydrogen roadmap as well is a really important part of this, as well as things like air pollution strategy, renovation wave effects on businesses and households, and the effect that they have on our targets, and of course the impact on economic growth and employment. Being Ministry of Commerce and Industry as well as Energy, we have a role to play in promoting the circular economy and promoting green practices within businesses and industry itself. And so it's really good to have all of this information that we can integrate in the funding programs for entrepreneurship as well, which are really building a sort of green element within them that is much, much more important than it was in previous years, of course. And we're happy to see that industry and enterprises are embracing that despite the challenges posed by COVID. So last but not least, just a quick word on our national governance system. It is, as I mentioned earlier, at times quite difficult to coordinate all the different government departments and stakeholders that are dealing with the green transition. So we have a ministerial committee which basically has many different working groups at the technical level, looking at different initiatives and themes. And so for each project, whether it be hydrogen or e-mobility or penetration of RES in our energy mix, etc., there's a different working group which has a technical committee which has timelines and a specific sort of step plans that they have to follow, utilizing, of course, the various studies and the various forecasts that we have available. So I don't want to take up any more time, as I see I've run out of time as well. So I would just like to close by thanking the British High Commissioner, Mr. Stephen Lilly, for organising the event, Climate Compatible Growth, especially Professor Mark Howells from Imperial College, who we've had a very long and fruitful collaboration with, of course, for the invitation, but also for all the support throughout the years. And we're very excited that we're now expanding our collaboration and will have even more valuable models available to work with in the next years. Thank you, everyone, and look forward to the rest of the event. Thank you.
Minister Pilides, thank you so much. That was really exciting. I know that there's a whole bunch of people in Kenya who were doing energy planning last week, and they were really excited to see and I think they'll be delighted to see those maps coming out of OseMOSYS. So that's really inspiring, and thank you so much for that. We have quite a lot of nice questions, but maybe I'll go backwards and start with an interesting question, which I'm going to also ask to Costa Rica. But Minister, Cyprus and Costa Rica are global leaders in transparency and open source model use. How did you get there, and why did you choose this path? I'm sure you're used to being put on the spot.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Well, we got there largely with, as I mentioned, the help of the stakeholders that I mentioned earlier. So it's important, I think, for countries and people to realize that even though governments sort of set targets and set the scene for what is going to happen in terms of the Green Deal, in terms of how ambitious we want to be, governments do not necessarily have internally all the scientific knowledge and background to be able to perform the analyses that need to happen for the implementation. And so actually it was really important to bring in institutions like IRENA, which not only show us what the needs are, but how we can go about developing a model and then learning and drawing from that model to meet our targets. So it's a learning process, and I would say that there's a lot of things in hindsight I think that we could have done better, and it's a new path for everyone that everyone needs to follow. So we will continue to seek stakeholder involvement. I think that's really important. The institutions and the universities that we have working with us have also been extremely helpful, and public consultation as well is important. So I find that when you have all this information available, it's always good to share it with the community at large as well, so that they know that the plans that are being followed are based on scientific information, and that they're not just randomly being sort of implemented, and that and people want to buy into and want to be able to understand the strategy of the government and to be able to suggest things. So we've had a few events recently where we've done that with, whether it be environmental organizations or stakeholders within the energy the energy space, or even the wider public at large, and it's proven very successful, and we've also got a lot of useful suggestions and insight out of that as well.
Great, thank you so much. Jairo, can I ask you that question? In terms of
happy to tell you why we took this path. climate crisis is global, and the process of engaging with the stakeholders, it's very complex. So a way that we have found to be suitable to work with them is in a transparent way. There are assumptions behind every single model. So the way that we have enhanced that collaboration and co-creation concept with the different stakeholders is to transparently communicate those assumptions and considerations, which are then discussed with them. Okay, if we want to enhance the buy-in process of a national decarbonization plan, such as the one that Costa Rica has, then we need to co-create with the different stakeholders and engage them during these discussions. And the best way to do it is transparently doing it. If we try to create a national decarbonization plan in the Ministry of Environment and Energy, and then you go, once the plan is created, and you go to the Minister of Finance and say, okay, this is the plan, we are going to do it like that, it's not going to work. It's very, very difficult to do it like that, because then the Minister of Finance will say, well, I would have loved to do this and that, and then it has to start over. So since the very beginning, and because the team that I lead at the University of Costa Rica was engaged in these discussions, well, it is also in our DNA at the academia to be transparent. I mean, our surname in academia is transparency. So we opened all the data and we discuss it transparently. And as I said during my presentation, the moment that we showed the capacity that the team had, they were like, okay, guys, I now want to help. What do you need from me? And that was an amazing moment. So here we are, supporting with very specific data for Costa Rica, along with international data in the cases that we don't have. For instance, the projection of technological costs. We don't produce technology in Costa Rica. We import technology. We import electric vehicles, photovoltaics, and those projections that are made by international agencies. So it is really the way to move forward in the decarbonization of our economy. We have to be transparent. That's it.
Thanks, Jairo. That's really, really inspiring. We have a cluster of questions around capacity building. So I'm going to fire the first one at Luis. And this is one that I'm asking to you, but actually it's something we all need to think about. But the question is, how do you ensure, or how do you evaluate that the energy tools users are well trained at the IAEA? All of us who are doing capacity building ask this question. How do you think about it?
Well, we have different approaches. I mean, depending on the profile of the people that are going to be trained. Sometimes we carry out workshops that they are very specialized in one particular thing, or sometimes are a bit more general in terms. The thing is that we follow certain international standards, so we can make sure that there is a kind of a standardization of the capacity building. Regarding this, we also, for example, for a specific countries, every country has decided what is the master plan for the capacity building. So they need a certain type of training, etc. So it's tailor-made to that particular country, and therefore we can do so. Here it's very important the partnership, especially with academic institutions. The training, especially from young people, to get them started in these energy planning activities is very important. So we choose, for example, there are several universities in Latin America. They are really highly recognized in this area, and we try to partner with them. They have our own models. The models that we have, the methodology, are free of charge for anybody, and therefore they can use this tool and train also the students, but also the students that come from other countries. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And a related question to Engineer Kiva. What are your plans, or what lessons have you learned, and how are you going to address them in terms of the question of retaining model knowledge in the ministry itself, in your group in the ministry, and in the longer term, increasing skills at the university level?
Thank you very much. Indeed, I've had very good lessons, one of which is that it is good to retain the people. These are very specialized services, are not just common to have people with this knowledge. What we have done in the energy sector, both within the ministry and our parastatals, is to work as a team. So we have a team which is doing this power planning, and we have officers from the ministry and from the agencies. We have 7 agencies under the Ministry of Energy. So each of those, the utilities, Kenya Power, KenGen, the KenGen, even the one that does rural electrification, the one that does geothermal development. So we have a big team. And what we find is that sometimes people even move within these agencies. So they will go with this knowledge, and wherever they go, they are able to continue with the planning. And then the other thing we are doing is to continually train those who are coming so that we can be able to have succession coming on. And therefore, it is important. The other thing is also we are engaging and partnering with the universities who are now very much involved even in our energy provision. We are having trainings done at some of the public universities and even private university. We are having a specialized school by Kenya Power, the utility, which is also going into research and energy studies, so that we can be able to continue inculcating this knowledge, and perhaps getting the universities even over some specialized courses in planning, so that in the long run, we have capabilities within our academic institutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Engineer Kiva. I'm very pleased to hear those answers. Shaukat, I've got what sounds to me like a technical question, so I hope that you're okay with it. What tools does IAEA capacity building activities use for integrated nexus analysis? I'm hoping you know what that means.
Thank you very much, Lara, for that question. And every time we get to hear about Nexus, I would like to believe that we are talking about an integrated sort of approach, how we are able to use these tools in managing the climate issues, water issues, and land issue as well. So we've got some few tools here at the agency. If you recall my slide and the one of Louis, we spoke about a tool such as MIDE. This is one of the tools that we can use under this integrated sort of approach. The other one is what we call Simpacts Dwell, and we also have another tool, Message. These are some of the tools that are available, and they could be used when we are looking at this nexus analysis as an approach. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Beth, here's a big question. I hope everybody in the group can answer this, but what is the long-term goal of CCG?
Yeah, that's a good question. So from the partnership point of view, I'll answer it that way, because I think depending on where you are, you might have different different ideas for yourselves. But from the partnership aspect, it's to ensure the capacity is built up. And so these initial projects that are done typically have a capacity building factor involved. And we would then evaluate, like Luis was saying, if the capacity was built up fully, And within those projects, if it has been, that would be viewed as a success. Whereas if CCG left the key country that we're working with, then that country has the tools and resources available in order to continue on their path of climate compatible growth. So that's what we would like to see overall, is that when we leave, the country is enabled from the partnership's point of view to do and have the knowledge in their own demand-led path. Kind of as a short answer, but if I may, there was something that came up in one of the earlier sessions that I wanted to a bit clarify. Was I think it was the planning practices session in CCG, in one of the COP side events earlier. And it was asking if capacity building meant that the expertise, we're bringing in a tool that has very specific expertise and it's not nationally owned. And I would like to sort of argue that we're doing both within CCG, and our goal is to do both, is to make sure the tools are nationally owned. While we provide kind of a skeleton structure of the tool, it then becomes adapted. And I think those examples of the case studies today show that it has been adapted to the country. So that would be our, definition of capacity building. So I just wanted to note that. Thanks.
Thanks, Beth. And I think I'm going to return back to Natasha, which might be our last question, we'll see. But it's quite a thorny question that we're all thinking about. So the question is, some open tools can apply open data. How did Cyprus overcome this challenge to ensure that the data in the modeling was secure? So at the country level, can you use open source data and still have a secure plan?
We can. I mean, I'm not a technical expert, but I think it was retained and administered by the ministry, and it still strictly is held by the ministry, and the models that, or at least the presentations that are available to the public and to the stakeholders mentioned before, all have different levels of sort of confidentiality and access. So not many stakeholders have access to the modeling in its raw, let's say, and sort of full potential. So that is something that we definitely plan to continue on doing, because of course the models are now becoming more sophisticated with the new project that we have in the pipeline. And the idea is that the power of the software will be, of the models, which will be much greater, in that they will be able to really kind of process data in a very fast way, which we're not able to do now. So now if we want to analyze our models and put different variables in, etc., that's a process that takes some time, and we need to think about it and come back with different sort of ideas and decisions. But in the future, all of that will be much more automated and much quicker in the way that it can be generated. And so, I think it's important to have relationships of trust and to have all the necessary agreements with the different stakeholders in place. So we do have some NDAs with parties who are privy to more information. And really, of course, cybersecurity is always an issue, and there's always a risk that things can be intercepted and broken into. But that's also something that our Ministry of Innovation and Technology also looks at, and provides all the necessary tools for us to have secure systems.
So there's a way if there's a will.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a risk. It's just a case of managing the risk, I suppose, to a degree that is acceptable for us. And at the end of the day, we want to be transparent and open. And there's a lot of things that we do make public. It's just a case of protecting also the parties that develop the models for us and the intellectual property as well. And it's not just the information itself that is sensitive.
Great, thank you so much. So I would like to thank all of our speakers. I think there's been a lot that's been really inspiring about today's talks, and I think it's shown a number of different things. It's shown that small countries can make a really big global difference as thought leaders and role models. It's shown that capacity building programs and institutions like the IAEA and climate compatible growth are playing a really key role, which is enabling countries like Kenya to show that countries with developing and emerging economies can also show how it's done and inspire other countries to follow suit. So I think that's all really exciting. One of the things I wanted to thank all of our speakers, but in the preparation and the run up to this event, I thought I would like to say that behind every successful speaker, there's a team of people who work really hard to make it all possible. That's my team in CGE. It's the CCG team that have been doing a remarkable amount of work this week, but it's also the teams behind every single one of the wonderful speakers we've had today who have made it possible for you to arrive and be here on time and your tech to work. And so I think what that's telling us is that everybody has a role to play in making the world a better place and making it a safe place for everybody in the future. So I think it's been inspiring in all those different ways. And I want to thank everybody for the work you have done, for sharing it today, and for all the work you're going to do in the future. Thank you very much for joining us.